Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What's happening, guys? Node Investor here. Happy holidays, happy new year, happy Saturday, Sunday, wherever you may be. We are talking Bitcoin. We're talking crypto. Looking at the charts, guys. What's going on with Bitcoin? Are you guys all freaking out yet? So let's see what we got here, just so you guys know. I'm waiting this one out, sitting tight, being patient. I keep wanting to do some of these oversold bounce trades, but I don't know. I'm going to just keep waiting. I don't really want to do too much over trading today and watching the charts. Makes for some good trading when the markets get this crazy, but it's all good, folks. So let's check it out. Let's see what we're doing. I was been watching Bitcoin kind of do its thing for the last couple of days, correcting, and we'll take a look at where the market is. On the screen here, I've got the BTC on Bitfinex. It's due for a bounce near term. We're hitting these oversold levels, but on the daily and on the 4-hour, which is what I've been watching, I don't believe we've bottomed yet. And so that's what I've been talking about here for a couple of weeks now, guys. I've been talking about, if you missed my last video, first and foremost, let's do that here. Go check that out. I was, in these videos, they don't ever get a lot of reviews, and rightly, and I can understand when you tell people, hey, Bitcoin's going down. Nobody wants to hear that. But if you missed it, a couple of days ago, did the Bitcoin bubble burst? And I gave my views on maybe and why it wasn't that big of a deal and the correction that we're seeing and where it could go. And in that video, I said we were probably going to bounce near term. We're going to see some alts rally. That's what we saw. And then I said we would probably finish out the head and shoulder pattern that's forming on BTC, and that's what we're seeing so far. So playing out, we'll see how it continues. Let's take a look at the charts here real quick. One more thing. If you missed the newsletter yesterday, it's linked in the video below. It was kind of a follow-up to that video, but I posted that on Twitter yesterday, so you can read that without having to subscribe to the newsletter. You can get that for free. You can see the past issues there. All right, so first and foremost, let's take a look at the charts. BTC is selling off pretty good. We are now below that neckline. And let's see here on the charts. I want to show you guys what I'm looking at, the head and shoulder pattern I've been talking about. It was probably easier to see on the 4-hour, so let's do that. And so, the right shoulder is a little bit of a small right shoulder. And you can see the head taken up to about just that shy of 19. And the next line is this double bottom that we formed here on the 4-hour a couple days ago before rallying again. And here we are starting to break down. We couldn't see any follow through on that upside, unfortunately. And so there it is. That's the general pattern, right? You can adjust the neckline a little bit up and down, but that's generally the zone that I'm looking at here, right? And this is what I'm looking at. So we're basically right there. We're at the neckline. It's ideal to see this thing bounce a little bit, and then we'll have to retest that low. But this pattern's playing out, guys, and I'm just cautious here, right? I really do think it's gonna sell off some more, and if it does, what's the downside? So let me see here. I'm got quite a few people. Okay, I'm guessing everybody can see this. There's some people saying they can't see anything, but there's a lot of people on the call right now, so I'm guessing most of you can see this. If not, somebody please let me know. So looking at this chart, right, here's the head and shoulder pattern I've been talking about. If you're not familiar with these, they are a reversal topping pattern that happens, and it's just a psychological thing, right? You can see the left shoulder, right? We pulled back, the rally, we pulled back. The good thing was we formed this double bottom. That was encouraging. I was thinking, okay, at least we're due for a bounce here. The volume was pretty crazy on the low, and then we started to rally. And then this was the test. The last couple of days, we made a higher low, which was a good sign, and it was kind of above this little consolidation here. And so I was encouraged, but I was also looking at a very tight symmetrical pattern forming on the very short-term chart. And it was just a matter of, let's see what happens next. And late yesterday, it broke. Let me go to another chart to show you what I was looking at. And so, I've been taking some positions in the alts. I was in quantum and some other stuff here. But once that chart pattern broke, I was kind of like, okay, just get out of the way at this point, and let's see what happens next. And this is what I was looking at. Let me find my chart. Sorry about that. I had it drawn. Maybe I deleted it already. It looks like I did. But we were forming this very symmetrical pattern here on the 1 hour. And it was just a matter of next move wins type of scenario. And so at this point here, late yesterday, I started getting cautious, sharing this chart with some other folks. And sure enough, we broke to the downside, we bounced, and since then, we've just kind of been stair-stepping our way down. We're definitely oversold near term, so we're due for a bounce on the 1 hour. And if you look at even the shorter term time frames, it's definitely hitting the lows. And so a bounce is certainly due. But if we go to the bigger turn, the bigger time frames, right, the 4 hour, the daily, we're not quite there yet. And what I've been talking about is very rarely, it'd be very unusual, very rarely have I seen a big downturn bottom where the RSI is in 50s and 40s, right? That would be very unusual, and it would be very bullish if it did, but I don't think we're going to see that. And if you look at the daily chart here, going back to some of the other bigger corrections, and this is going to be a pretty decent correction. I mean, it already has been, but that's because we were just running up so much, right? I mean, we were down already at this point 34%, right? So if you look at some of the other pullbacks we've had, the RSI right here hit 28, right? Down here, this is the September, or this is the first one. This is the China FUD down here when we sold off. This is the first correction we saw in June, July. You can see that one bottomed 29. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for, some 30s type of action on the RSI. You can see this one hit a low and then a higher low, but that was still 33, 37. This one back here, 38. That's pretty high. And so that's what I'm looking at. So now it's not an automatic buy signal. You want to look at volume. You want to look at some other things. But that starts giving you a clue that we're probably hitting lows. Right now, we're not there yet. So we could see another leg down. We could see some more sideways choppy action. Doesn't necessarily mean it just crashes and goes straight down to hit RSI of 30. What it could do is also just kind of a weaker type of, sideways lower action, maybe creates a falling wedge or something that it can break above from there. So that's the signal I'm looking at. Now, worst case scenario, if this head and shoulders pattern decides to fully resolve itself to the downside and you do a measured move on some of these things, this is what I'm looking at. And this is what a lot of people have been saying, right? So this is kind of common out there in terms of projections to the downside. Fully projecting the downside, and I'm not saying this is going to see, you're talking 6, 7K. That's worst case. I don't expect that. I did some Fibonacci analysis in my last video talking about potential downsides. And one of the big areas that just keeps coming up is this little consolidation, around that $7,000-8,000 mark. And that would make sense because that was the last big support consolidation we saw. This little section in between, there's not a lot of support there. We're basically right at key support now. So if we don't bounce, there's going to be not a lot of support below this. And so you can see an 8,000 figure in Bitcoin if this really materializes and it starts to accelerate to the downside. That's, in my opinion, probably going to be the lows, but time will tell if we see it go that far. There's been other people projecting that number, 7,000, 8,000. Now that we've come down this far, the numbers are getting a little extreme. Oh, we're going to see 5,000. It's like, okay, let's just take it one day at a time and look for the signals. But I'm not buying here yet. Other than trading, right? You can buy the dips, you can do all that stuff, but I'm going to just keep sitting on my hands, waiting this one out and seeing where this bottoms out. Could it bottom somewhere else in between? Yes. And that would probably be likely because if everyone's waiting for that $8,000, $8,400 mark, why not start buying before that, right? I mean, why not start buying at 9 if you can write out an additional 6, 7, 8% to the downside while it bounces? That would make sense. So I would think others would start to see that. And if everyone's waiting for these crazy low numbers, you'll start to see some buyers step in before that. It's the whole game theory, trying to anticipate what everyone else is going to do it before them and so forth. And we'll see that type of action happen. But if we see sub 10,000 BTC, 9,000, 8,900, 88, 84, that's going to be an incredible buy opportunity in my opinion. The other alternative too, to keep in mind, this is not just about Bitcoin anymore. As you guys all know, there is an entire universe of very attractive, very strong altcoins that I believe will bottom out before Bitcoin does. And there's still a lot of holdouts right now. And so even if Bitcoin decides to just consolidate, let's say it does, one of these where it just kind of, let me get my brush here, bounces, rallies, bounces, and just flops and chops for a couple of weeks or even months, right? And doesn't hit the old highs until, after the spring or something. If it just starts to slow down and bottom out, the altcoins are going to be very strong in this scenario because they tend, we've seen it already, right? Just in these very brief pauses, like the last 2 days, when Bitcoin does this and it rallies a little bit and it's in this little trading range, man, you see some rallies. We saw it up here too. When Bitcoin pulled back and it started to bounce around here on that $16, $17 mark, we saw some huge gains in the altcoins before they saw, the big break, and then they all take a pause, and then Bitcoin tries to bounce, the altcoins explode. And I think we're going to continue to see that pattern play out. And so wait for Bitcoin to just bottom out, show a little bit of a pause, and you're going to see the other names really start to rally. There's sure enough going to be some holdouts. And we're seeing that, right? Some of the names, some of the better names out there, Cardano, just not phased by this move right now. Ripple, living in its own universe right now. Ripple has just been on a tear, right? Just up over 100% here in the last couple of days. And Lumens, and there's always names. There's other names that I've been liking. I've been sharing with some folks. One of my names going into next year, I'm going to put a newsletter together talking about 2018. Is some of this, some smaller cap names like Mod here on Binance. You can see this one. It's doing its own thing. And this one's more of a longer term hold for me. I like this one, but look at what it's doing today. I mean, just it's on its own tear. It's already up 40+% on this. I missed this as a trade, but as a hold, I was kind of looking at it down here. And so that's actually up pretty good already just in the last couple of days, right? Up 83%. And so is there going to be holdouts? Is there always going to be alts that are going to be tearing regardless of what Bitcoin does? Absolutely. But just generally speaking, right, across the board, when Bitcoin takes that big of a hit, if it sells off from the current levels down to 9K or something, you can expect that most other names are going to sell off. Just it's part of the panic, right? And you just come down the list, right? They're all kind of pulling in a little bit. And even if they hold par with Bitcoin, if they're just going sideways and not selling off worse, you're still taking the same hit as Bitcoin, because if it's priced in BTC, it's going to be taking a hit if Bitcoin's going down. So just keep that in mind. At this point, patience is the key here. Just kind of waiting this out, seeing what happens next, and seeing where the low is. Let's go back to that BTC chart. And so we're bouncing right off that neckline right now. Not unusual. I was kind of expecting this bounce here pretty soon. The RSIs and the very short-term charts were getting pretty extreme to the downside. We have had a pretty good sell-off the last couple of hours. Volume was coming in pretty heavy. And so here we are hitting a low. And this low correlates with this prior low back here that we saw around the 22nd through the 24th of December. And we put in a very nice double bottom. Now, it'd be interesting to see if we can do another double bottom right around these levels. If we do, that would really show some strength for this chart. And I'd be a lot more bullish after that, right? If we saw a double bottom rally, a test, and then to start to head higher there. Just testing that neckline so many times and starting to bounce and go off of it would be very bullish, very strong. Right now, that's just not the case. You can see the sell volume here on this 1 hour or 4 hour chart. It's just exceeding the buy volume on all accounts, right? The last couple of days, there's more red showing up, and we're just not there yet. So, all right, let's take a look at some other charts here. I'm going to go through some of these comments, see what you guys think. Are you guys still holding BTC? Are you buying here at these levels? Wouldn't be a bad buy for a longer term hold. I'm kind of waiting it out. What's the downside? Me losing money. All right, so ETH BTC. Yeah, ETH is of the big three probably the strongest right now. So we'll look at Tronics. NEO, man, NEO was looking so good yesterday and just got hit right now with everything else. But we'll see what else. ICX. All right, let's take a look at NEO. So NEO, this is the Bitfinex chart, 4-hour chart of NEO. It's still very strong versus BTC. And we can see we had a little bit of a breakout yesterday. Going to the daily, we were consolidating nicely in this little bit of a zone here. We had this little trading range that was starting to form on NEO. And then we started to break out. And the USD side was really a lot clearer. So if we go to that one, let me show you NEO USD. This is what I was liking here. This little, let me move it here, right here. So you can see it started to really tighten up there, and I'll go to the 4-hour chart. We tightened up here at the lows below the last high, and this little range around $68 was kind of the level I was watching. And it broke out yesterday and then just really shook out, broke out. But right now it's holding up pretty good. It's trying to maintain in spite of the selling that's going on in BTC. And so I'm still watching this one. I'm liking it. I'm going to see if these lows start to hold, and if we start to rally, NEO getting back above $70 will be a very good sign near term. Versus BTC, like I said, it's showing strength, right? Good relative strength overall. It's trying to buck this trend and trying to start outperforming. And I like NEO longer term. I think NEO will be a triple-digit name. Over $100 NEO has been my projection since, the last couple of months here. And I was really hoping we'd see $100 NEO before the new year, but we didn't. So right now what I'm looking at here, the big picture first, NEO has finally broken this downtrend and is trying to test right around that level here. But you can see the trend has really turned and is trying to consolidate and show some more upside strength. We're testing this little bit of a horizontal resistance point right now. And if it gets above that, then I think you'll start to see a pretty decent run on NEO. And so that's right around that, 560 Satoshi, 560K Satoshi level, right around that range. And from there, that's not even that much away. How far is that from here? That's about 10%. Above that, the next big resistance is here, and that's a 50 to 60% move from here on the BTC chart. Certainly will put NEO over $100 at that point. So longer term, still like NEO. Near term, as far as trading goes, if you're doing more of that, probably a good dip entry is what I'm going to be looking for here, and you're kind of seeing that now. So holding its own. I think once BTC starts to turn the corner, you'll start to see this one move out, along with some of the other names. All right, let's see what else you guys got for me. Let's look at some of the big three here real quick. So Ethereum, taking a look at the ETH/USD chart first. Let me zoom out because it is really starting to tighten up around these levels, and I'm watching to see how this plays out. So you can see, let me clear one of my moving averages. We had this breakout. We had the big rally. Seen a lot of support so far. It's forming a lower high right now, but it's a little bit of a symmetrical pattern too. You can see that the lows are also rising. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this one starts to play out on the USD side. It's getting very tight, where you can see we had this double bottom kind of form right here. This was pretty much in line with BTC. Then we had this high, and we had a higher low put in right there. And then we put in this lower high. And right now we're testing that second low. And it's going to be interesting to see if this holds. I was really watching it up here thinking, man, this thing's really coiling up. Let's see if it can break out. If it gets above 760 or so here, you could really start to see this one run. And this is the one that's probably the strongest of the others, right, versus Litecoin. You can see versus BTC has been outperforming in the last couple of days. Just as Bitcoin's fallen down a little bit, this one's trying to maintain a little bit overdone near term. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a dip here. But we'll see if we can hold above this 525, 530 Satoshi level or so. Looking at Litecoin. Man, oh man. Did Charlie Lee ever call the top on that one? I think he sold right there. That was his wick right there. I'm kidding. But yeah, this one's still pulling in. Again, just like Bitcoin, I'm thinking this one's not done. Looking at some oversold conditions before looking at a potential trade entry on this guy. We're breaking down, right? You can see the charges, bounces are getting lower, and it's just starting to pull in. Volume after the top has been mostly sell volume. There's very little accumulation, unlike you saw way back here, right? All green bars, couple red, but just tons of accumulation. Now it's just some profit taking, some selling coming in. Where the low is on this one, it's really hard to say with Litecoin. It just tends to overshoot both ways, up and down. So it's kind of hard to say. We're in this no man's land right now. There's not a lot of support. You can see this rise was just straight up, very few pauses along the way. And so it can settle out anywhere along the way here. So who knows on this one? I know there's a lot of bullishness going into 2018 for Litecoin, and I still like Litecoin longer term. I'm still holding some in my long-term portfolio. So we'll see where this goes. As far as trading goes and potential entries here, I'm probably going to be waiting until I see some more bottoming action on this one. All right. We covered NEO. We said ETH. We covered a lot of people waiting on the sidelines. Cool. That's good. I mean, you know, especially if you took profits at the top and just kind of waiting it out, man, why not, right? This is good stuff. All right, VeChain. That one's looking really strong here as of late. I threw that one out yesterday in my newsletter as an example of names, newer names to be watching, projects that are bucking the trend here. And, you know, it's having a little bit of a sell-off today, but nothing to really be alarming yet. I mean, there's just normal pullback action. This is a smaller, still kind of smaller cap name, but longer term, I'm liking this project. It's finally resetting some of that overboughtness here on the 1 hour. Looking at the 4 hour, it's pulling in pretty good. So this is a nice one to be looking at dip entries, because you can see these big volume spikes. This is buyers coming in, and you know, just there's some profit taken at these levels along with Bitcoin selling, but this one's looking pretty strong. Where I'd be looking for this one here, if you can get it back at these levels here, right? That 12K to 13K Satoshi, which is not too far below where we're at now. That's another 15% or so, 15, maybe a little more. It'd be attractive for me to be looking at it there. I like that one longer term. Quantum, man, I was in this trade yesterday. Over the last couple of days, I just closed it out as a precaution versus BTC because it's not outperforming enough to offset the pullback. So I'm just waiting it out. But this one just looks really strong. I'm still like, look at this daily chart on Quantum. I mean, let me go to Bittrex. I hate those long wicks that Bitfinex has been pulling in here. But look at this daily chart. Probably one of the most bullish charts. Here, one sec, guys. That's got to be one of the most bullish daily charts I'm finding right now. I mean, after the low, we had this big bottoming, and it was just straight up. It made for a beautiful trade up here, hundreds of percent. Look at the crazy buy volume, and then it's just been settling out very quietly, just drifting lower very calmly, and then now starting to see some more buy volume. Try to break out yesterday and pulled in a little bit with BTC, but you got to keep an eye on this one, guys. This is just very bullish when I see these type of charts, especially in light of the current market. It's just sitting tight. It's just waiting. And when Bitcoin bottoms out and starts to run, I think this is going to be one of the leaders. And so I'm really liking this one. I'm watching this one. I'm ready to jump on this one as soon as I see signs of some good lows, or if this one really starts to outperform enough to the point where the way I see it is, okay, if Bitcoin drops another 10% or another 15%, but this thing goes up 40, 50%, then I'm cool with that, right? I'm okay taking that trade. But if it's only going up 5 or 6% and this one's, you know, BTC is dropping, it's not enough to offset the risk. So that's how I view those. And yesterday, it wasn't outperforming enough, right? We saw this little bit of a breakout and just kind of sitting tight. So I decided to just get out of the way. But one of the best names out there right now, other than Ripple and some of the others, of course. All right, let's see here. Let me look at, so we covered Quantum. I'm going to just kind of cycle through some of these names here. ICX, yeah, has been getting a lot of play here. It's had a good run. I think it's finally consolidating at the levels. Here's the daily chart, right? Just had a crazy run up, finally pausing a little bit here. Going to the 4 hour chart, you can see how tight this one's really getting. This one kind of, these are the symmetrical patterns that kind of break either way. It's leaning bullish just because we've had such a big run and it's giving you several pauses. So odds favor it's going to break to the upside. And so I'd be looking for a break above that, 41,000 level or so. But I probably wouldn't preempt it in light of the market conditions. I'd be waiting just to see that confirmation of the break, and then if it does, and the market decides to settle out here, you'll see a pretty good run on this one. But it's just settling out right now. It needed to. Finally, RSI was just crazy high on here. As it started to get higher, right, you started to see a little bit of a cooling off, a little bit of momentum slowing. We had a pretty decent pullback already on this one. I mean, from the highs, you saw the lows come down 41%. Doesn't look like it on the chart just because it's had such a huge run, but that's a 41% pullback. So that was enough to kind of reset some of that overheatedness. And here we are putting in a little bit of an ascending pattern on this 4-hour chart, getting real tight here. If you look at the 1 hour, it's kind of back and forth, back and forth. So I'd probably just be waiting for some upside confirmation, see some volume come in, take it above this 40,000, 41,000 level. And you might see another leg up on this one. Tron. Let's see if that one's still in these days. Very similar on this one too, where it's after that big run up. Here's that daily chart. Just kind of came out of nowhere. And I know it's a newer name, but just the valuation got a little overheated, in my opinion. It just kind of got a little too excited. Right now, it's just putting a little series of lower highs. You're seeing a lot of profit taking here at these highs, though. You see these big wicks. They're accompanied with this bigger volume. That's just some big profit taking coming in. The good news is the buyers are kind of finding the support level. And so, good to see some profit taking without the big crash in the price. If you see some profit taking and buyers showing up at a certain level, then it's just finding that equilibrium and, that price discovery. And once that settles out, the sellers are exhausted, then you might see some buyers start stepping in again and pushing this one up. But for now, this one's it's a very interesting pattern here on the 4-hour, how tight it's been here. You can see how narrow that range has gotten here. So we'll see where this one goes. Right now, I'm leaning to the downside as far as where I think this one will go next. That's just a guess, but that's just based on the pattern I'm seeing here on this chart. So we'll see where it goes. Might see another retest of this low before it settles out. What do I think about Cardano? Cardano is probably in my top 10 for 2018. I love Cardano. I think the project's great. It's given you several opportunities to pick it up at the lows here in the last couple of weeks. We had a really good opportunity back here. Give you another run up here. It's giving you some bases. And then this most recent consolidation here finally broke out and has just been crazy strong. I mean, after breaking out of this one, you're already up 40, 50%. It's a little bit overheated near term, in my opinion, so I wouldn't be chasing it now at these levels. I'd probably just wait for a little bit of a pause or some entries on a dip. But longer term, I really like it, and I think Cardano is going to be one of the big winners next year. Let's see here. Ubiq. Yeah, how's Ubiq doing? I gave that out as a trade a couple of days ago and it turned out to a nice little pop trade. Yeah, it's still looking pretty good. Let me see here. Let me go to the daily chart here. Yeah, so it's just still climbing, marching higher. It looks like it has more upside to go. Bouncing pretty much right into this first resistance level. Makes sense that it's stopping right here and kind of seeing some profit taking. Wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of settle out for another day or so and then bust above. And once you get above that, then the next big level is right around there. So you could see another leg up here if it settles out for a day or two and get another 30, 40% on this one. This is a smaller cap name, so it could keep going. What's Ubiq at these days? I haven't even checked in terms of market cap. I know it's climbed quite a bit here in recent days. Let me pull up on my other window here the coin market cap. Looking at Ubiq, we've got $195 million. So in today's market, still considered a pretty small cap, right, compared to some of the other big names that have really come up and hit that $1 billion mark pretty quickly. So Ubiq, I believe, has some upside potential and could still run for quite some time here. So looking at this one's pretty good. EOS. Man, I haven't looked at EOS for a little bit here. Let's see. What's up with Ray blocks? You know what I don't like about it is the fact that it's not on any major exchange. If they were on a different exchange, I probably would, but it's not. And that's just kind of a big flag for me. So EOS has finally been pausing here in the last 2 weeks, giving you a nice little rest, low volume as it's coming down. This has just been crazy strong. I think it'll be stronger going into 2018. I don't think it's done. And so I think EOS is looking pretty good. There's not a ton of sell volume coming in, even at these highs. I mean, it's had a huge run. This was one of the first names to bottom out. And I mean, look at that, up 720%. Right now it's still up 583%. And still not a ton of selling showing up just yet. So versus BTC, it's holding its own. On the USD side, again, because BTC is coming down, you're seeing some pulling in here. You saw this long wick during the big shakeout, but tons of support came in here. This is on Bitfinex too. You got to keep that in mind just with the way Bitfinex has had those shakeouts. You can see here on Binance, right? Still pretty strong here. And so looking like a good secondary entry if it can hold this little support area right around that that 54, 55K on the BTC side. All right, let me see here. Melissa wants to see BNT. Yeah, looking pretty good. Again, so many of these younger names that just show up, right? These, they finally find a bottom here, and this one's just been marching pretty high off this low here. And it looks like it has a way to go still. It's just got room to run. This one's just giving you these nice little pauses, tons of buy volume coming in at these little dips. And so if you can get another one of these dips, I mean, these are just nice little secondary entry points. And the way I like to play these, right, after you see a big run up, it's always tempting to chase these when you see a big pop. Let me give you an example. I mean, you see this 1 day move and you're like, oh man, this thing's up 30, 40%. And it's tempting to jump on it at that point. But it's, you got to remember, these names are so volatile, especially the smaller ones, that you're going to get a pullback, right? You're going to get some profit taking. At best, you're going to get a little bit of a pause. And so look for those type of pauses, right, where you see the big pullback and then it starts to go sideways and finds a low and starts to give you this little bit of a rounding kind of base here. As far as trading goes, right, if you're buying for a longer term, then you want to buy the dips. But if you're trading, then I started looking for some horizontal resistance points where it keeps bouncing into, and then right here, look at this volume that came in. Right there, look at that volume that shows up, and it corresponds with, with this bar up here. The next bar, the next bar is just the big volume bar there. That's this bar right here. So, and that's really it. That was your signal. It takes off. You see some red. That's just a lot of kind of the battle taking place there, buyers and sellers. But overall, the trend starts to move higher. So those are pretty good little entries there. Oh, me say go. All right, let's take a look at OMG. Trying to hold its own against the BTC here, sitting tight. This chart's setting up real nice, by the way. It's just, it's been pausing here. It's finally kind of coming off the lows, hitting this little bit of a resistance here, but it's just sitting real tight. And when you see these, right, where the overhead resistance is just very clear, very defined, you got to pay attention, because if volume starts coming down when it's doing this and you see the pattern just really tightening up, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion, before these really start to bust out. And so this one's looking pretty good. You can see in the 1 hour, it's kind of, the more granular looks, choppy, but the lows are getting higher here. And here you're putting in this very tight, almost like a little bit of a handle type of pattern with the low right here and the high. I mean, how big is that range here? It's a 5% range, and that's actually pretty tight for a name like OMG here. So this one busts out here above this range. You can see a pretty decent move after this big run up. That's a perfect pause. That's what you needed on this daily chart. So I'd be watching this one. This one's looking pretty good. Let me see how that looks on the USD side. Yeah, not too bad. Sell volume hasn't been too crazy. It's finding these long support wicks right now. Today's volume is not that bad yet. 4 hour chart, trying to find a low here. So yeah, looking see that one outperform BTC here when we bottom out. Decred. I've been liking Decred. Still holding Decred in my longer term account here. Seen some pretty good action here coming off the lows here. We'll see how it keeps going. It's pretty much finally run up to this big resistance points. You can see Decred's hitting this wall. And that's good, right? You like to see them run up to those points, test it, and then pause. And if it can start to sit tight right around those levels, wouldn't be surprised to see Decred maybe pull back a little bit here, put in a higher low, a little bit of a dip, maybe down to 530 or so, maybe a little bit lower, and then retest that high. If it just goes straight up from here and busts out, and it could, the RSI is not anywhere near overbought. It has the momentum. It could go up. Then you could see it go straight to this next resistance point and then test that. And from here up, it's a good 50% move, 47% move. So that's substantial, right? So you got to keep an eye on those. I mean, this is a good one. And I'm still holding this one longer term. It's not a huge percent of my portfolio, but I think it's got some good potential going into 2018. I'm going to be keeping this one. Another one I'm been watching here and I'm liking is Salt. Salt's been good for a little bit here, a couple days, finally pausing, just sitting tight. And again, this was one that a couple days ago, I went on a little bit of a road trip after the Christmas holiday, taking some time off. And I had jumped on this Salt trade. Where was it here? Oh, I'm trying to remember the levels I bought this thing at. Anyway, it was down in here. And then BTC started doing its thing. I said, I'm just going to get out of the way, close this one out. I closed it out. Then it had this huge run up. So it was a good trade. It was a good entry, but I let a lot of it go. Fortunately, I do have some Salt in my longer term holdings. And this one's actually probably been the best performer of the week for my longer term holdings. It's just been pretty good. So not complaining too much, but would have been a nice trade this week in light of everything else taking a hit. Let me see. We covered VeChain. We covered. I'm looking through some of the names here you guys are throwing out. We've covered some of these. I'm gonna try to move along quickly, so I probably won't go back. But you guys can always. This will be out there on the video, so you guys can always go back and check it out. Rest in peace, Ripple. Oh, Ripple, man! Oh, man. Oh, I even had to take a screenshot of Ripple yesterday when I was watching the market cap. Let me see where Ripple was yesterday here. Hold on. Let me pull that picture up here. I was watching Ripple yesterday. I was going, really? Ripple, $104 billion. Bitcoin, everything was just up there, up 82% on the day. Just, wow. Wow, Ripple, right? So let's go. Let's keep looking here. Yeah, Ripple is still strong, man. No doubt about that. Lisk. Take a look at the Lisk. All right, so and then what I'll do is I'm going to take a break. I know a lot of you guys have just joined, so I'll go back. I'll redo BTC, give you my thoughts on the pattern we're seeing and what to do from there. So let me cover Lisk real quick, and we'll go back and take a quick break, look at the Bitcoin. So Lisk, again, has been another stronger name, holding its own versus BTC. But, of course, if you look at the USD side, I mean, when it's going sideways like this and Bitcoin's taking a hit, then it's pretty much just following Bitcoin's pattern. So holding its own, but versus BTC, it's encouraging to see that it's pausing after that big run-up it had off the lows. And so that's really nice to see that, putting in a little bit of a flag pattern up here at the highs, letting the moving average catch up. And maybe a little bit more, a couple more days of consolidation, let this RSI cool off a little bit more, but it's certainly cooled off enough where it can have the momentum to finally break these old highs here and start running. And so you can see, I mean, we're basically at, at the highs here, and this is good. I mean, because it starts to break out versus BTC here right above that 172 level or so, then you're going to be in new high territory on all accounts there, and that's going to be really good for Lisk. Let's go back to Bitcoin real quick. Let's take a look at the charts for those that have just joined us. And so I've been talking about this head and shoulder pattern that's been playing out here. And, it's kind of going either way the last couple of days. You can see on the 1 hour chart, we were getting very symmetrical. We had put in this double bottom here in the 22nd to the 24th of December. We rallied, pulled back, made a higher low, which was very encouraging. And then the last couple of days have just been sitting real tight, going back and forth. And it was just kind of one of those next move wins scenarios where it was this little symmetrical wedge pattern that could have broke. I was hopeful. I was optimistic, thinking we might break to the upside, considering this was a higher low, double bottom, another double bottom, but it didn't. And so what's happening is just kind of continuing to form that head and shoulder pattern that I've been pointing out here for a couple of weeks now. And we're seeing that play out. Now we're right at the neckline, right? So it's bouncing, it's testing, and there was some very strong support that came in right here. So we want to see that hold. If it doesn't hold, then you can see a pretty big sell down. The next big support is going to be right around this level. And so you're talking basically 9,000, maybe 10,000 BTC, right? That little area. A lot of people are projecting lower. They're saying this consolidation here, which is 8,000, maybe 7,000. That makes sense. If we did a Fibonacci retracement, and I covered that in my last video, then yeah, you can see the downside projects down to that. If you do a measured move on this head and shoulder pattern, then the downside certainly projects below 7,000. So there's a couple of ways to do it. But if it breaks the neckline, the summary is you're going to see some pretty decent selling coming in, right? A couple $1,000s worth at least from this 12K level. So yeah, you could see 11, 10, 9. I think at these points, you'd start to really make for some really good buy opportunities. And really the approach I'm going to be taking here is, you know, I'm kind of waiting it out right now. Other than some quick trading, maybe some oversold bounce plays, I'm kind of waiting it out. And when I see this start to bottom out, the play, in my opinion, is going to be jumping on some of those very strong alt names, right? You might have to buy BTC as an entry point for most of those, but that's going to be the objective right there. Is even if Bitcoin settles out here and maybe goes up and down 10 and 15% as it bottoms out, as long as those names are outperforming, right, going higher than 15%, and I think they will, then that's going to be the way to do that. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. But for now, I'm just waiting it out. I mean, this could be a good little bounce play, but I think right now the bounces are sellable, in my opinion. If you're, you know, if I was still in this, I'd be taking some off the table into the bounces until this thing settled out, only because I think we're going to see a little bit of a bounce here. And I do think we're going to break this neckline. Even if it's a temporary spike low, I think we're going to break this neckline. So I'm just waiting this out. I'm waiting for the RSI to cool off a little bit more. It's still in the 40s. Very rarely have I seen the daily RSI on a big consolidation bottom out at 43 or 50, right? So I've been cautious because of that. And I think we'll see some more downside. Ultimately, where that is anyone's guess. There's some pretty good numbers to project, though. You know, this 9,000, 10,000 area, and then 8,000 is the two biggies that I'm looking at. If you missed it, I did send out a newsletter yesterday. I posted that on Twitter. That's available. I covered some thoughts on the market, where it's still going. This was the pattern before it broke out that I was talking about. We'll see it here in the next day or two. And we're seeing that. And before that, I did a video. So go back and check that last video I did where I talked about, did the Bitcoin bubble burst, and why that's not necessarily a bad thing, and how the alts were going to be favorable. And so go check that out. It was an interesting video, got a lot of bad comments, but I tend to get those when I talk about Bitcoin taking a hit. And so it's natural for people to not want to hear that. I get it. But guys, it's not the end of the world. I'm still very bullish on crypto, and we're going to see some good projects next year. We're going to see some leaders continue to show themselves. And so just hang tight, right? Remember to protect your profits. You got to remember, December, just December, we went from 10,000 to almost 20,000 in 2 weeks. And so it was due for a pause. It was due for a little bit of a pullback, a correction. And even when we started to see this correction, man, we had this massive altcoin bull market that was happening, right? BTC was kind of just sitting tight, pulling in a little bit, and the alts were just running strong. So you just got to remember that there's always be leaders, always be trades to happen. And just got to be patient, more longer term. For the longer term hodlers, right, you're seeing Bitcoin do its thing. I think you're just going to have to be a little bit more patient. A lot of people are saying, well, we're going to see 21,000, you know, in January. I'm not that bullish. I'm just not that bullish. I think Bitcoin is going to consolidate a little bit longer. but I think the alts are going to start outperforming when that starts to happen. All right, so is it the end of BTC? No, it's not. How do I get your newsletter? You can sign up at nodeinvestor.com. Here on Twitter, I posted it here. You can click on the link, and then there's also a subscribe button there. And you can also read the past issues there, where you can see kind of get an idea for what I send out and a little bit of what I've covered over the months. So a couple of ways there, nodeinvestor.com, or go through the link on Twitter. Okay, let's go back to the charts. Let's go check out what else is happening here. Let me see. You never trade cryptos, just stocks. BTC, OTC is generational wealth. Cool. I've been doing some stocks here in recent weeks. Mostly been crypto this year, though. It's been the place to be, no doubt. Crypto trading is way funner than stocks, in my opinion. Except for the fact that it's 24/7, and generally you get these huge moves like midnight on a Saturday where you just want to chill. But hey, welcome to crypto. District, I like District. Let's take a look at DNT here. So District on Binance. This is a smaller cap name, but I think it's going to have some good potential going into 2018. So let me zoom out. This is the daily chart, right? Once it got listed on a lot of exchanges, it had just this big pullback. But then here in recent weeks has just been on a nice run, finally pausing, pulling in a little bit here. You go to the 4-hour charts, you can see how tight this is getting. Very equilibrium type pattern, symmetrical, right? Where it's just the lows are tightening up, the highs are tightening up. It's getting real tight. It's going to make its move here pretty soon. Next move, sitting tight with BTC, just kind of on par, right, with Bitcoin. So versus the USD side, this will be taking a hit too, just like anything else. But you can see this one's sitting pretty strong here. It's also on Bittrex right now. Very similar pattern, but you could just see that support line rising off the lows. And he dips into that line, and I'm liking this one. So I'll be looking for this one. The pattern here, though, the volume price pattern is just showing accumulation. It's just showing a lot of accumulation here. So got to keep an eye on this one. Smaller cap name too. I did ICX already, guys. I didn't do Bitcoin Cash. Let's take a look at that one. So look at it both ways versus BTC. I don't know what this move was yesterday. I thought it was going to start taking off again. I was like, okay, is it done? Looking at the daily chart here, right? You can see we had that big run up that took us basically to this old major closing support bar. Since then, it's just been pulling in along with everything else. But the pullback has been pretty mild, to be honest with you. The volume hasn't been that crazy compared to the buy volume that we saw here. And it's just kind of settling out here and letting the moving averages catch up. You see what the 30 is. The 30's kind of in the middle there, not really relative. So the 10 EMA on the daily is starting to catch up, pulling in a little bit on the RSI. This was definitely way overheated back here when it did the big run up, and it just needed to be, just to consolidate a little bit. Versus USD, again, not looking as nice just because Bitcoin's taking a hit, but it's starting to find a little bit of a low here. Look at the daily chart here. You can see it's this big support bar that came in, but I would just probably wait on this one right now. I'd be pausing and letting this one pull back a little bit more. See where we find support. I think there's going to be big support above 2,000. So that that 1,900 to 2,000 area is probably going to be a good support level. See if that holds. But this is one of those weird projects where it's kind of like, does it get pumped? Does it go higher? I mean, I know there's a lot of politics behind this one. I've been talking about Bitcoin Cash just because I think it's going to be, well, before I had the big rally, before they joined Coinbase, right, when it was 90%, 10% of BTC's value, I thought we were way due for an upside move. We saw that. It went up to 25% of BTC. Now it's pulling in. We're back down at basically 0.176, 0.18. Is this it? I think it's not. I think it's going higher. I think we'll see Bitcoin Cash in 2018 probably around 30 to 40% of BTC's value. I know that's very bullish, but I think we're going to see at least 30%. So from here, you're going to see some more upside, maybe 50, 60%. For the maximalists out there, I get it. If you don't want to touch it, if you don't want to buy it, I totally understand that. But hey, most of you guys are buying Ripple, so why not throw some Bitcoin Cash? But it was a good trade here while I had that little pop. Right now, we're kind of seeing what happens next. So let's see here. Can we get a preview or example of your technical analysis course? That's a good question. I don't know if I have one out there. I know I have a preview for the 101 course. I'll have to do one. I'll do one of my chart videos and give you guys a preview for it. I'll throw that on YouTube and let that go. Now, I will tell you this, and obviously I'm biased because it's my course. I've had a lot of very good reviews, and for the price, it's $49. You get 4.5 hours of video. I mean, I don't know if I've ever given back any refunds. Let's just put it that way. I've had nothing but good reviews for the price. It's value, it's technical analysis, essentials, chart patterns, resistance, support, breakouts, all that stuff. And then I did an addition to the course where I talk money management, which is very important, right? Scaling in, scaling out, using stops, all that. But I will put a sample video out there for those of you that are interested. But if you're just getting started with reading the charts and understanding all that, whether it's my course or anybody's course or a book, I highly recommend you guys take a look at that, because it'll give you an edge, understanding how to read the charts and how to find support and resistance levels and see volume accumulation, all that stuff. Whether you're buying for a long-term hold or whether you're buying to do some quick trading, the charts are just indispensable, in my opinion. Like, if I'm buying something for a long-term hold, I won't make an entry until I look at the chart first, because I want my entry to be more precision-based and a little bit more optimal, right? So I would just never buy anything without looking at the charts. And so you got to, if you don't believe in technical analysis, then I get it. The course is probably not for you, but you should, if you're looking at the charts, you should definitely take a look at that. Let's see here. Let's take a look at some of these other ones. Yeah, I might have to drop this comments if you guys keep. It's all right. It's all good, guys. Oh yeah, we looked at salts. We didn't look at Zen. Zen actually has been pretty good here. Let me see how it looks lately. Yeah, it's still looking pretty strong. What I was liking on Zen is it did this little bit of this big move, and then it had this nice little consolidation pattern that it was doing right here. I was watching to see how this played out. It was getting real tight, just coiling up, and then it just broke to the downside. But here it is trying to rally, kind of back into that buy zone right here. But we'll see where this one goes. On the hourlies, you can see it's just been stair-stepping its way up, making these higher lows. But this is probably more of a dip buy, in my opinion, just because it's so volatile too. This is a smaller name, but you can look at these bars. I mean, this is the 1 hour. The 1 hours are 5% wide. The 4 hour bars are 15% wide. So generally on these type of entries, you want to get in at the lows. Otherwise, if you're using stops or something like that, you're most likely going to be taken out with the stop. So that's frustrating when you get shook out of a move and then you see it go higher. But it happens. It happens. All right, let's see here. Stratus. Yeah, let's take a look at Stratus. So taking a look at Stratus BTC, let me zoom out, go to the daily chart here. Still putting in a good low. I mean, we had that huge sell-off right over the most of the year when it finally peaked out, and then it just started to find this good low here. Now it's just been marching out very nicely, breaking out on the USD side, making new highs here. And I think this one's still going. I think it's still looking good. A little bit of a divergence showing up here as it's pulling in, but that was just because it's due for a pause. Volume is starting to decline here at these levels. So we'll see if it could just sit tight for a little bit. I'd like to see some more consolidation here before doing anything else after that nice little run up it had. But you can see it's starting to do that little bit of a pattern. Right now it's a lower high. If the support here doesn't hold, then I think you'll make another low, and we'll see if it's a lower low or if it's just kind of a higher low at this point. Where's the support here on this one? Yeah, you're kind of seeing that's pretty good low right there. You can see this this resistance that ultimately became support here when it broke out. You see the breakout. We retested that breakout point pretty closely, and now we're bouncing. So that was a pretty good test of that breakout point. We'll see if it holds. It looks like it probably will. Yeah, I looked at Mod when we first started. It's probably one of my top names going into 2018. Smart cap, I think it'll be good. Just on a tear here these last couple of days, though. So we talked Mod. It's still going. I'm liking it. I wouldn't chase it now. I'd wait for a pullback, but definitely good. But that was your breakout point there. Down here, these levels give you a secondary entry point, and then bam, just taking off today. All right. Let me see what else we got here. We did ICX, Tron, Salt. Covered those. I think Tron got a little overvalued. I like Salt. I'm holding Salt long term. Let me see what else. Stellar and Vert. Let's take a look at those two. We didn't look at those. Stellar's finally pausing here a little bit. Man, that one's just been on a tear. Along with Ripple. They tend to kind of move in pairs like that. Going to that daily. You can see Stellar has had a huge move. It's already, you know, RSI is pretty high. Could still go more, but it's getting higher risk here for sure. But this one's just been crazy strong along with Ripple. Just doing its thing. Pausing here a little bit on the 4-hour, which is good. Kind of with BTC. So it's on the USD side, it'll be pulling in here a little bit. Vert. Is Vertcoin ready? Let's go take a look. This one hasn't been ready for a little bit. I've been waiting on this one. After that little double top I pointed out here, that was the second top there. You can see the first one right there. I've just kind of been bearish on this one, and it finally just kind of settling out. It didn't really break below that per se, but it's settling out. It had a good opportunity to rally here. It had this little bit of a falling wedge that it was forming, and it did break above and give you a quick trade, but not a ton. Let me show you guys here. Let me zoom out a little bit. This is what I was looking at here, right? This little bit of a falling wedge, and then finally broke out. Had a pretty decent rally, but just kind of fizzled out as it hit this resistance point right here. And hasn't really been able to do a whole lot since then. I think it's just consolidating still, just moving in this little tight range. It's getting real tight here, so we'll see where this goes. I'm not in this one, and I'm probably not doing anything with this one yet. Civic. Man, Civic. Yeah, what was up with that, man? After that big old pop, just huge volume sell-off, and just sitting tight here. I'm not sure what to make of that. That's such an unusual move. I pay attention when I see that kind of a volume move and then just sitting tight. You got to pay attention. But right now, it's just sitting tight on this daily chart, letting the moving average catch up. It's had a nice little run off the lows. I mean, just even from that point up, right, it was 200% already. So it needed to finally pause. It had this crazy move up. I wish I would have been able to unload some Civic on that move, but it just happened so fast that it didn't. So it's just sitting tight right now. As long as it holds above that, 5,500 level, I think it's fine. I think it's just doing a little bit of a pause that it needed. There's a covered Neo. BAT. Yeah, let's look at basic attention and BNB coin. Actually, that's a good one. So basic attention to kind of been off the lows, moving higher, finally pausing. I think it has more upside personally. I think this one's going to keep going, and I'm liking basic attention here at these levels. Maybe a good secondary entry point if you're not on this one. What I'd be looking for is just kind of these, these kind of consolidations that it puts in, and I like to wait for these to finally break out. Unless you want to buy the dips, if you see these lows, right, that's an alternative entry. Here's the kind of the resistance point to be watching right above that 2,700 to 2,800 level, and on the downside, it's making these higher lows. And so you can see that one here. And if, an entry would also be into the little bit of a support area with a very tight stop just below. That's more for trading. If you're more of a long-term hodler trying to buy something like this, then these are the ideal scenarios where it finally pauses, gives you a little bit of a consolidation. That's where you want to try to jump on. What's your end game? USD or sell the alts at the top for more BTC? That's a good question. I get asked that a lot. Ultimately, It's BTC when I'm trading alts, but when I see BTC doing like what it's been doing in the last 2 weeks, it's USD because I want to protect my capital. I want to protect my overall account. And so if I think Bitcoin's going to take a 20 to 30% hit and my altcoin is sitting tight versus BTC, or it's only going up slightly versus BTC, then I'm just going to get out of the way, because if Bitcoin comes down 10 or 15% or 30% and the alt's not outperforming by at least that much, then I'd just rather be in cash. And that's basically where I'm at right now. That's my stance, is I'm sitting in cash, waiting this one out. Always looking at the alts. I'm going to be alt hunting as soon as BTC starts to bottom out here and start to bounce, because I think the alts are going to outperform. At the end of the day, though, that's the, especially for the trading account, USD is ultimately what I'm looking to gain there. But it's been going up by both BTC and USD. It's just when Bitcoin's correcting, get out of the way. And even if you just go back into Bitcoin, you'll have more Bitcoin if it drops 20 or 30%. Let's see here. Dash, we didn't cover Dash. Oh, actually, let's do BNB coin. I was going to do that one next. This one's been so strong. So BNB coin, if you're not familiar, Binance, they have their own token for that exchange. They use it for some of the fees, the payouts, some of that stuff. They're going to burn a large part of it after a certain period of time, and then they're going to start doing some token buybacks. And because of some of those fundamental factors, and because I think BNB is going to be an exchange that really continues to grow and gain popularity, I think BNB token will benefit from that. It's kind of like owning, a beneficiary in the exchange. So I think you got to keep an eye. Now, it's had a huge run already, right? Once it broke this downtrend, just an amazing run, surprisingly stronger than I thought. And you can see once it broke that downtrend there, started to break out, had that initial pop, right? That initial pop off the lows was 60%. Then it paused for about a week. And then here it's just up another 120% in 4 days. And so it's pulling in a little bit. If it gets back down to that 51, 52,000 level, that's something to keep an eye on. You know what's interesting about BNB that I've been thinking about? Think about this, guys. So we have most exchanges will either you can sell into BTC, or they give you some alternative pairs, right? Bittrex, for example, you can do ETH pairs, so you can sell certain coins into ETH, and some of them have pretty decent trade volumes. Poloniex had like Monero pairs and stuff, but a lot of them have USD, and USD Tether has been the popular choice when you want to just sit it out and go to cash. But there's a lot of concern about USD Tether and potentially overprinting and imploding and all that. And I get that, right? That's a valid concern. If USD Tether starts to lose its parity to the US dollar, then what, right? Were you just better off writing it out in BTC or something? This is where I'm thinking the BNB token has an advantage, because they also have USD Tether on their exchange. But I'm thinking in a worst case scenario where Tether just really goes under, or something happens to Tether, BNB or Binance is going to have the advantage of having a BNB pair. And for those that don't want to go into BTC, may choose to go into BNB, and you may see that thing really pop in the event of Tether losing some confidence. So just something I've been thinking about here the last couple of days, watching Tether do its thing. I'm going, man, BNB might actually be an interesting hedge if we see that happen. Just the things I think about sometimes. Let's see here. Sub. We haven't looked at Sub. So this is another one, very strong. Has been on a nice rally here the last couple of weeks, and it gave you a little bit of a pause here the last 2 days, and now it's starting to move higher here. I like this pattern here. Nice little ascending pattern off that pause. You can see this breaking out basically right at the breakout point now. So if it gets above this level, I think you're going to see another leg up. And generally, when they break above those resistance levels, they tend to move pretty quick above that. So you're going to want to see volume come in if it breaks above that, but that's a nice little pattern there. Very strong name. But you can see here, this is on the BTC chart, right? It's been in this range pretty much since the 25th of December. And so you haven't been outperforming Bitcoin. It's on par. So if Bitcoin's taking a hit, then you'll see this one come down USD wise. All right, let me see here. Z Classic. I don't know what happened with that move the other day. I know that was part of the fork and all that, but so this one here, and if you're not familiar, there's this Bitcoin private. It's going to be a fork tied to an alt, Z Snarks, all that fun stuff. Z Classics been a beneficiary of that, and strong chart. Can't argue with that. It's giving you these little pauses. If you're trading it, these are nice because you see these little rallies, and then you see a little bit of an ascending base there. You just kind of wait for the next move, and it's giving you another one right here. And when they break out, you see the next leg up. And look at the volume. I mean, the volume's just been crazy strong. So no sellers showing up yet. Maybe a good secondary entry here. $10X. All right, so let's see here. This one, still have my old lines on this chart. Just hasn't really recovered. Finally turned the corner at the lows. We'll see how high I can go. It's basically bounced right into resistance here, and it's pausing. Let me show you the level I was watching here. This old base / support that broke down, right? That was the level I was watching it to bounce into. It almost got there, putting a little bit of a top on the daily. Since then, pulling in a little bit, but it's still sitting tight. So it needed that pause. You remember off the lows. I mean, a lot of these alts off the lows, right? 100%, 200%, 300%. This one went as high as 255 before pulling in. It's still up 150% though off the lows versus BTC. And so I think 10X is going to continue to rally here. I still like it. I think it's a good project. And especially with crypto kind of going a little bit more mainstream, getting more adoption, you're going to see projects like 10X and some of these token cards gain a little bit more traction here. And so keep an eye on this. So this might be a good secondary entry here on a little bit of a dip here versus BTC. On 4-hour chart, you can see some good volume accumulation patterns showing up here. A little bit of selling here in the last couple of days, but it's pretty good still overall. I like the uptrend that has been putting in here. I'm just kind of right in this line here. So as long as that holds, it's a good sign. All right, let's see here. We'll look at a couple more of these guys, and kind of want to just give an update on the BTC and some of these markets. And let me see here. I've been going for about an hour now, so that's good. Let me see. We didn't cover IOTA. Let's take a look at IOTA. Let me go IOTA USD first. So IOTA USD on the daily chart here. We all know what happened. Had that crazy strong run. Took it up to 5 something. Since been pulling in. I think it still needs a little bit more downside. I've not been liking that higher low pattern has been putting in. So, or lower high pattern. After there's a little bit of a double top, right? It rallied strong. Gave you this nice consolidation here. Very, very constructive base. Tried to break above. Failed. A lot of volume came in, and now it's just kind of like rolling over a little bit. It's right at a key support level. This is USD side, and I know it's tracking to Bitcoin right now, selling off. And so I'd be watching this level here. Saw a ton of support come in here. So, I mean, but that's extreme, though. I mean, if it was down to $2, if anybody picked it up at that level, that was a good buy. But I think this is a key level. It needs to hold right now. Now, versus BTC, it's getting really tight. And it's one of those like next move win type of moves, right? Where it's just so tight right here. It's just on par with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes up, this goes up. But this eventually is going to need to break in one way or the other, right? To the upside or the downside. This one has some bullishness going behind it. So I think it might break to the upside. I think you'll see some bullish favor here, but who knows? This is very symmetrical, and it just could go either way at this point. So I'd be watching this one to show its hand here in the next couple of days, if not today. So keep an eye on IOTA. All right. We looked at Tron. So some of these names we looked at, guys, I won't go back through them right now just to keep moving along here. I'm going to pick out a few more names. We looked at Cardano, probably one of my top picks for next year, my top 10. Dash, Dash has been pulling in. Did I do Dash? I didn't do Dash. Let's do Dash here. Let me do Dash USD first. Yeah, it's kind of put that little top. It's just kind of stair-stepping its way down right now. Unfortunately, this support level, this horizontal support level, it's breaking down. It's kind of looking like a descending triangle pattern now that it's doing, right, where you can see that lower highs forming here. Those tend to break to the downside. So next level down to be watching is, you know, kind of this level, this down to maybe that $600-700 level. You know, the next thing is always what's going to be the next coin added to Coinbase and GDAX. A lot of people have been asking that. I think as more coins get added, you know, each one will be less of a dramatic move, but the next one or two probably still will. And Dash is at the top of my list for a potential add to Coinbase. Ripple's there. Everybody's been talking about that. Dash is another one that I think might have the potential to be added there. All right. Let's see here. We did Bitcoin Cash. We did NEO. I don't think we did 0x. Still going. Someone's asking me this about this one in my group, and I've been pretty bullish on 0x after the lows here, and still marching along. Give you that little bit of a pullback, going higher. We'll see where it goes. Volume is starting to wane here at this second leg up, so it could be a little bit of a wedging move up. So just be cautious here. You know, when you start to see the big breakdown and volume start to edge up, if it fails below this prior high, you could see a second leg down. So just be cautious when you see those type of moves up. We did NEO, we did ICX. I'm looking at the comments here, so you guys might have to just go back. NEO is one of the first ones I covered, so it'll be at the beginning of the video after BTC and Ethereum and such. Cool. Okay, yeah, we did Lisk. All right, I think that's it, guys. Appreciate y'all joining me on this wonderful Saturday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday morning, whatever day it is your time. Let's take one more look at Bitcoin. Where's Bitcoin doing since we've been talking here? Is it bouncing yet? I've been waiting for the bounce. Looks like it bounced a little bit. Here's on GDAX. Yeah, it gave us that little bit of a bounce. Now it's pulling in a little bit. Let's see if that retests lows. Trying to put in a higher low. I don't know if that'll be the low. I doubt it personally. I think it's going to see another leg down, but we'll see. This is trying to put in a low here. You guys know where I'm at in terms of the broader head and shoulder pattern. I still think we're going to see the neckline break, which is pretty much breaking right now. And then we might see a little bit of a spike low. See how low that takes us. Could be make for a little bit of a viable dip, in my opinion. Here's a daily chart. I'm waiting for this daily chart RSI to bottom out at a little bit lower. I don't think it's going to bottom out at 42, which is where it's at right now. And so I'm just kind of sitting tight, watching this thing play out. But checking out the alts, because there's a lot of good charts. There's a lot of good setups. And when this thing finally settles out, I think you're going to see some pretty good runs in the altcoin. So that's going to be it for now, guys. I'll keep you guys updated as I see this play out going into the new year. Until next time, everyone, take care.